If you're thinking of buying a new sander, then give me a few minutes of your time and I'll tell you what I've discovered after using these in my workshop. Welcome back. Firstly, I can't tell you what you need, only you know the answer to that based on what you do in your workshop. I can't tell you the best sander on the market, that would be a little presumptuous on my part. What I can tell you is what I've discovered using this range of sanders on the projects that I've made in my workshop. So why not grab a cup of tea, a couple of biscuits, maybe a piece of sponge, small cake or something, and we'll start with the belt sander. P.S. Everything that follows is just my opinion. This is a particularly old gentleman. I bought this in the late 80s, would you believe? And this is my go-to sander if I want to remove material fast. I had a 10-foot long outside patio table, 3 foot wide, where all of the finish had cracked and some rot had got into the top, and I needed to clean it down, and this is what I went for. Nothing gets in its way. I think you can get from 40 grit upwards. There may be a 36 grit, but 40, 60, 80, 120, definitely everything's just going to get eaten by it. And it's also going to scar the timber really badly. But if you've got to get stuff off, that's the boy. Hard work to use, really heavy, pulls like mad, keep a good hold on it, but man, does it remove the material. There's an awful lot of hype about the Rotex, which we'll talk about next, and how much material it can remove, but compared to this, the Rotex pales into insignificance. So lots to take off, not overly bothered about the damage that it'll do. That's the boy I go for. Next up on my list is the Rotex, the Festool RO 150 FEQ. What a cracking name, that's nice and easy to remember. The Rotex is a multi-function sander, so you can have a coarse sanding mode, a fine sanding mode, and apparently a polishing mode. The coarse sanding mode locks the base, so you can't slow it when you apply pressure to the sander, and it will remove material fast. Given their due on that one, it's good. It's not as good as a belt sander for fast material removal, but it won't leave the scars that a belt sander will leave. I would use this to remove the scars from the drum sander, which is a belt sander, on an end grain chopping board, or anything else that I wanted fast material removal on, but I didn't want damage left on the surface. In fine sanding mode, it becomes an eccentric random orbit sander. So the bottom's disengaged, it won't scar the material, less material removal, but for finer work. Now that being said, the Rotex is a big heavy sander that I don't tend to use for finer work. I want something lighter, a bit easier to move. And I don't want something that will fall over with the cables in the back, and then the Rotex will. That's about the only fault I can find with it. Apart from that, really good sander, really pleased with it. Next up on my list is a cup of tea. Cheers. Next up on my list are these two. I'm pairing these together because they're essentially the same machine made by different manufacturers. So I have the Festool ETS 150/5 EQ, and I have the Makita BO6030. Great names both, nice and easy to remember. So they're both eccentric sanders. And in my opinion, they're both lightweight sanders. If I've just gouged the living hell out of something with my belt sander, and then I've used the Rotex to remove the damage that this has done, then I move on to something that's finer, easier to hold in one hand, less vibration, and won't do the damage that these two could do if they're left in one place. So this was the first one that I bought, and I believe pricing is still somewhere between the £300 and £500 mark. I'll look it up and put it on the screen, and I'll obviously put links down below to all of these, apart from this one, which is no longer available, I think probably for the past 25 years. So an eccentric sander, meaning it's got a 5mm offset. That's what the /5 is for, so that when it revolves around again, that particular abrasive won't be in the same place, therefore minimizing any circles that you could get left by the sander in the top of your material. And this one's essentially the same, if memory serves. I bought this purely because I didn't want to have to buy another one of these if I wore it out. So this was about £109, I think, from Axminster. I'll put a link down below. I don't like using this. There's nothing wrong with the sander. It's perfectly capable. With the same paper on the bottom, it does the same job. But this vibrates, and after a while, it hurts your hand. This doesn't. I've sanded with this for hours and hours and hours, and I feel no impact from it. It's really well balanced. Even with the cable in the back, it doesn't tend to tip over. This is really, really heavy. This isn't. I'll put the weights of the two up on the screen. So £109, £300, £400. Would I buy it again? No. Definitely not. Don't like using it. Avoid using it. I go back to this one. Would I buy this again? Yeah. Next up on my list is another Festool, and it's the ETS 125 FEQ. I wonder what FEQ stands for. If I can find out, I'll put that on the screen as well. So I did a review on this quite recently. I'll put a link up. I think they call it a card here. And I bought this specifically for edge sanding and fine sanding. It's essentially a smaller version of this. There is a difference in the offset. This one's 5mm and this one's 3. If I'm being brutally honest, I don't know what difference it makes. I can't see the difference it makes. I'm sure it does, otherwise they wouldn't make the two versions. So I use this for sanding the edges of smaller items or smaller areas that I need to get tighter into that this won't allow me to. There is a definite overlap between the two. Neither one of these two sanders I would put coarse paper on. I've got 80 grit for this, but I rarely use it. Both of them are normally 120 and upwards. Both great little sanders, minimal vibration, lightweight. In fact, I believe in the review I did, I picked this one up by it. Yeah, there we go. That's how lightweight it is. Very easy to use, very pleasant to use. Excellent at their job, fine sanding. Moving swiftly on. Let's just get rid of something off the table really quick. I was wandering around B&Q, I believe it was, and I saw this on offer for £30, £40, a JCB random orbit sander. It's rubbish. The circular motion it's supposed to have stops as soon as you drop the sander down on the table and leave it go, let alone put your hand on it. It was a complete and utter waste of however much it was, £35, so it never gets used. Next up on my list is this, excuse me, RTS 400 REQ. Again, the model names of these sanders are so memorable, aren't they? Not. An orbital sander, or a palm sander, or a palm orbital sander perhaps. I've had this for many years. Lightweight, minimal vibration. It does tip with the cable on it, but it's light enough for you to be able to control. And I use this for areas that won't go into. This is usually my go-to sander for sanding roundovers that I've just put on edges with the rotor. It doesn't leave as good a finish as the ETS 125 or the ETS 150, but the finish is plenty good enough in the majority of cases. If I can get to the edge with this and hold this in place, then I will go for the eccentric sander. But if I can't, then this little puppy is the one I'd go for. And like I say, smaller, narrower, flat surfaces, 20mm, 25mm, 30mm, that would be my go-to. Well worth it. And finally, in my collection of sanders, I have the RO90 DX FEQ. I bought this to do a very specific job. I had to refinish some louvre panel doors. That's how long ago it was, back in the and I needed a delta sander, and this particular model has an interchangeable head, so I can fit a 90mm diameter circular head to this, and I've got an eccentric sander, or I can have this delta head on it and I can get into nice little tight spaces. The idea is great. The implementation is poor, in my opinion. All of the weight is at the back end with a very small platform to balance on. So when you're trying to sand something, it's so easy to get all of the weight on the heel of the pad and damage the surface that you're trying to finish. So not good, Festool, in my opinion. I wouldn't buy it again. In fact, I'm considering buying a delta sander so that I don't have to use this. Not impressed. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty now of which ones I would keep, or more importantly, which ones I would buy again. And I'll first of all get rid of the ones that I wouldn't for sure. So that, rubbish. That, not rubbish, but the other one's better. And that, just not impressed, sorry. So that leaves me with these. So in summary, and to draw this video to a close, these are the types of sander that I consider I need in my workshop. A get out of jail card, the belt sander. Excuse me. Dual action Rotex to clean up after this and maybe do a bit of light stuff, some light work and some edge work. And that keeps me very happy. I hope this video has been of some interest to you, and I hope you've enjoyed listening to my inane drivel. If you have, give us a thumbs up, and why not consider clicking on that teeny little subscribe button down in the corner. Oh, and hit the bell if you want to be alerted to other videos I release on this channel. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed your tea. See you soon. Ta-ta.